So I wrote this speech 20 minutes before I arrived here today, and I've had about 4 or 5 beers, so I'm really sorry in advance. But we should be okay. Anyway, so today I'm talking about moral objects. This whole idea came about because it's a little bit topical, as you'll find out. Basically, it's about gun control. Is what got me interested in the whole idea. About moral objects. Okay, hang on. Let me get my notes out. Slightly baffled. Right. Now what's interesting, I think, about technology is that a lot of people just kind of take for granted that technology is incapable of possessing moral or ethical qualities. Like, people just sort of, like, people intuitively and sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? People naively characterize technology as being somehow ethically inert. And I don't think that's quite right. We'll sort of go into that in a second. Right. So what do we have here? 2 faces you have probably seen before if you've read the news at any point in the last year. Here we have Adam Lanza, lovely fellow up here, on December 14th last year, fatally shot 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut. Here, James Holmes killed 12 people and shot 58, nearly injured an additional 58 at the opening of the Dark Knight Returns in July, again, 2012. Now, unsurprisingly, in the United States, this has sort of catalyzed a great deal of debate on gun control and sort of the ethics and legality of that. Obama has come out recently in the wake of the Sandy Hook shooting and said, well, look, we really need to go over our gun control laws because they're insane. And a lot of people are sort of kicking a bit of a stink about it. Like this guy, right here. And this all comes down to, at least in the States, due to the Second Amendment, which is up there. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, ignoring the fact that whatever the American gun lobby is, well-regulated is not one of them. This is one of the major reasons why there is this enormous problem with regards to meaningful gun control legislation in the United States. So you get people like this chap here, Alex Jones, who has this great interview with Piers Morgan on CNN, where Piers Morgan's just sort of, he being an Englishman, being in favour of gun control, he's arguing with Alex Jones about, why it is desirable to have guns, legal and accessible, even like assault weapons. And he sort of devolves in this kind of hilarious but deeply frustrating tirade, which I thoroughly recommend everyone watch. Now, the biggest problem for them is that the Second Amendment is rather ambiguous. Not only because it's, like, as I said, because of the idea of a well-regulated militia, but also, what constitutes, what kind of arms are you able to bear? I mean, no doubt, at least in the States, no doubt the Founding Fathers had no expectation that people would be able to carry around Bushmasters. Like, that's what they were thinking. They were thinking, like, we're talking, like, long barrel muskets, single bullets. They were talking, like, black powder, we could stuff it down the barrel. This is not exactly the same kind of thing where you can actually shoot up to, like, 44 rounds a second or something. Some of these, like, really highly automatic rifles. But they weren't anticipating these kinds of scenarios. Now, a common response to the idea of gun control, at least from people who are in favour of not having it, is the idea that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Now, this kind of, I can get why people think this is superficially appealing. We can sort of go, like, yeah, sure, right? A gun's just an object. It's the person who has the intent behind it. The person performs a certain kind of act. It's the person who's entirely responsible. So what I'm going to ask is whether or not this view is coherent. It's not. Now, the reason why people think it is because technology is sort of seen as like a kind of tool making, right? And I'm not talking about technology in the way that I'm talking about, this phone, or I'm talking about this projector, or cars or whatever. I talk about technology in a broader sense, like hammers and even something like speech. We're just talking about ways and like these tools that we've developed and that help us navigate the world in a in a way that kind of makes things easier for us. Now, but this intuition that it is merely tool making and therefore is therefore incapable of possessing moral or ethical properties. This is the intuition. Now, in my opinion, this is probably an insufficient characterization. Because you've got to ask, there's a couple of questions you have to ask first of technology, like what it is. Now, I think technology, like David Pye here, so he's a philosopher of design. He's dead now. He was a philosopher of design based out of the Royal College of Art in the UK. And he's got this really interesting idea that technology is palliative. So, when like due to expediency or laziness or necessity or whatever, human beings develop technology in order to ease the pain of living, right? Like, that's why we develop cars and bicycles and things so we don't have to walk, because walking is hard. It's easy to ride a car. We have dictionaries because words are hard. We drink because life is hard. I mean, this is all of this stuff is palliative. Like as he says here, in this great quote, so if you just took apart a typewriter, all you need to actually write a letter with a typewriter, all you actually need is the ribbon, the keys, and the type bar ends, the paper, the ribbon, and the roller. With these and a little laborious care, one could probably write a letter just with like the bits and pieces of a typewriter. All the other stuff, all the machinery, all the gears and whatever, that just makes it easier, right? Because we're lazy. Because writing's hard. Everything's hard. Now, so there's two things here. One is that technology allows us to perform the same kinds of actions we always did, but easier, right? So as I said, like a bicycle allows us to move more easily. However, crucially, I think, technology also facilitates the performance of new kinds of actions. It's really important. Now, so what I'm doing here is I'm channeling the work of a French phenomenologist from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, Maurice Merleau-Ponty, who writes like a lot of stuff about the way human beings interact with technology. And basically, he argues that human beings are related through objects to the world. So he uses the example of a blind man's cane. A blind man doesn't have the faculty of sight, that's why he's more makes him blind. What he has instead is a cane. And when he's using that cane in order to navigate the world, the cane is not like this inert object. It becomes part of his body. Like if you were to close your eyes, and sort of use one yourself, even as a seeing person, you would still encounter this. You sort of automatically absorb it within your, with your phenomenological field. Now, I guess, to explain the hat lady, I mean, to use an even more mundane example, if I'm wearing a big hat with a giant feather hanging out of it, so I'm a pirate or a musketeer or something, like a really high feather, what I'll do is I'll actually intuitively duck to go into doorways. I've already accounted for the fact that, I've got this feather hanging out of my head. Which is kind of weird, right? I mean, we do this innately. Of course, there's always errors. We always make mistakes. Sometimes the feather will fall off or whatever. But as someone like Pete here, who's 6'6", going to test, he gets his head rolled. Like, errors happen all the time. Just the simple fact that it's an error doesn't mean that it's not it's not sort of considered as part of the body by the body. So we can perceive with and through objects. So we can perceive, as I said, like through the cane. We can perceive through telescopes. So if we're looking through the stars, if we're looking through a telescope, we look at the surface of the moon. We're using that object to facilitate us viewing the surface of a body which is hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. I actually don't know how far away the moon is. Someone can probably tell me. Really far away. Now what's interesting is we can also act through our artifacts. So as I said, we can use it to drive a car, like we're acting. So the artifact can facilitate certain kinds of meaningful action. That would have been perhaps, we would have been unable to do so otherwise. So the object becomes part of you. Whoop, sorry. Now, what's interesting when we talk about our actions, so we say like, a tool can facilitate a certain kind of action. Technology facilitates certain kinds of actions. Now, our actions are already subject to moral judgment, right? Like, just, again, intuitively. If I were, like, apropos of nothing, stop this talk and punch Kim in the face as hard. Sorry, Kim. As as hard as I could. You'd all think, fuck, what a jerk. He's such a jerk. Why would Ryan punch Kim in the face? Like, what? Now what's interesting is that, you know, like, so my actions are the locus of moral judgment. Like, and rightly so. I mean, I just punched him in the face. It's just a thing to do, right? Now, if tools facilitate certain kinds of action, this raises an interesting question, because if the actions have moral content and the tools are facilitating certain kinds of action, then that means that the tools themselves also become relevant when considering whether or not that action was moral, right? So consider it this way. Imagine I'm driving along the road. I'm somewhere in the States, right? I'm driving along the road, and I'm in a traffic jam. I get in the traffic jam, and I'm having a bad day. Like, I don't know, my wife's been annoying me, and my kids are useless, and, you know, there's no beer at the pub or whatever. And, you know, this guy cuts me off, you know, just as I'm about to get out of this traffic jam. I'm so angry, and I think, fuck, I really just have to kill that guy. I look to the passenger side seat, and there's my Colt Peacemaker there, big 45 caliber gun. I pick it up, I get out of my car, and I shoot the guy in the face. Now, what's interesting is that choice, that moral choice, the choice to shoot another person in the face, would not be possible without the gun. What's interesting in this case is that, yes, guns don't kill people, but people with guns. Like, if we take it as a phenomenological unit, the gun being a part of your body, the gun being part of the means by which you are intending an action, the people with guns kill people. The gun becomes part of you. The gun is not this ethically inert thing anymore. It's something that is it's a constituent part of the act. One can't just say guns don't kill people, people kill people. Now, all technologies, as far as I'm concerned anyway, are endowed with and radiate ethical commitments. So like a gun, right? Or like, you know, an atomic bomb, as per the last slide, or something like that. The idea of an ethically inert artifact is nonsense. I mean, well, I guess one could use, you know, a gun in an ethically inert fashion. Imagine there's no one else in the world and I'm shooting a tree. I mean, for a tree, right? I mean, I guess one could imagine that, but in most cases, that's simply not the case. Even if I, you know, take my gun and I take it to a shooting range, and I just sort of, you know, I'm like doing target practice or something. Like, why am I doing it? You know, I'm not just doing it because it's I mean, I might be doing it because it's fun, but I'm presumably doing it for other reasons as well. Like, I'm doing it for concerns of personal safety or whatever. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, it's impossible to divorce the ethical content or the ethical ramifications of the use of that tool from the tool itself. You can't do it, or you can do it, but it's sort of, you know, intellectually dishonest. Now, I would argue, and I think most people here would agree, I don't think this is an ambiguous claim, guns should be controlled because of the kind of antisocial commitments that they radiate. Now, before I finish, and this is the final slide, if we accept the certain kind, like the tools have moral content, like our technology, our objects have this kind of moral commitments, then it raises some awkward questions, I think, about other kinds of things which we might want to protect. So we could say something like censorship in the arts. We might not want censorship in the arts, but in the instance where you have something like, you know, Triumph of the Will, for instance, which is, or like Birth of a Nation, you have two evil works, both of which are avowedly racist, avowedly nationalist. You know, I mean, you have these two, you know, keystones of contemporary cinema, but evil works, I think, by most people's like intuitive understanding of what evil is. Given that these also radiate the same kind of antisocial commitments that a gun does, do we also censor those kinds of works? And I think that's a really interesting and sticky question, and I'm not about to answer that. But I think it's probably something we should consider. Yeah. Hello.